This is level number 5 from a Pressure Approach Daily Drills. On the snare drum, we're going to quickly go through the fundamentals that I include in this lesson that are new. There's a lot of fundamentals that we've talked about before, so I'll try not to bore you with too much detail. But if you look at the first 4 lines, basically I am not only utilizing my full rebound stroke, but we're also introducing the heights between the full height and the soft tap height. Okay, so we think of the full height as being full strokes, and the soft notes, where I have a dynamic piano, as being soft strokes used with a wrist motion. But then what I'm doing in between is I'm doing a gradual diminuendo, decrescendo. All right, so I play a measure in that first line, a measure loud. That's my usual rebound stroke. As I get to the second measure, I gradually lower the height and get softer. All right, so there's a little bit of technique that we're learning here, in that our full stroke has a lot of velocity and force behind it to get it to move all the way up and down. But as we diminuendo, we use less force, less velocity, less height, and so that we can play softer. Now, as we're using less force and velocity, there's less rebound. So the hands start controlling the strokes as we play softer. So you're going to see me with my hands playing a big, loud stroke on one measure, and then as I diminuendo or decrescendo, you're gradually going to see me pull the stick into the palm of the hand and then play with nice wrist strokes. Now, as we're playing soft wrist strokes, we want to make sure that we're not leaving the stick to bounce around, because we want the control, and we also want that good quality of sound at the low end. So this is a very important concept for you to get into your head first, in your head and then into your hands, is when I'm playing really loud strokes, full strokes at a forte dynamic level, forte meaning loud, I'm using a lot of force and velocity, making a big loud sound. And then as I decrescendo, okay, I use less velocity, less force, and then use my wrist to play the soft notes. So as I move to the soft notes, okay, I'm using my wrist. So I want you to think of almost knocking on a door, okay? If I was knocking on a door, it's not like beating a door where I'm using a lot of force and velocity. When I'm knocking on a door, all I'm doing is using this motion of my hand. All right? So that is it's the same muscles, but I'm training a smaller muscle group, or a little bit more finesse in using those muscles. So this is a skill too of playing tap strokes. We call these soft notes tap strokes. So you might just practice that for a minute. On your right and your left hand separately, getting those tap strokes. All right, so the whole first line is just on your right hand, so your left hand's not playing. So forte, diminuendo, less velocity, less force, soft, but still in the wrist. All right, and then as I crescendo up, I relax my fingers and I start using a little bit more velocity. All right, and then line number 2, same thing on the left hand. All right, so hopefully you saw me as I'm playing softly, playing with just my wrist. All right, closing the fingers. I'm not squeezing the stick at all. I'm not being all tense with my wrist. You want to make sure that you're still relaxed. And then as I crescendo up, I'm allowing more room, but I'm also using more velocity and force to get the bigger sound. Now, this is not as easy as you think it is. All right, a lot of people blow off your dynamics and just play loud. And they try to keep the hands all relaxed playing soft. Now, they should be relaxed, I shouldn't say that. But I definitely want to utilize that wrist stroke as I'm playing soft. This will pay off in the long run when we're starting to use accent tap, two-height type of rudiments. All right, so line number 3 and 4 is kind of the same thing, except for I'm just going up and down. All right, so really working through those lines to make sure that we're making an even diminuendo and even crescendo. So you're really working through a lot of learning how to control not only the pressure in your hand and the size of the stroke, but also the velocity and force behind the stroke so that you can make an even crescendo diminuendo. So I really encourage you to spend a good amount of time on your own practicing line number 3 and 4. And don't just blow it off because it sounds like it's pretty easy. We definitely want to make sure that we're working on the right techniques. If you look at line number 5 and 6, it's the same as what we've worked on before. It's our double stroke. So remember, whenever I have one slash through an eighth note, we are doubling the value of the eighth note to become 16th notes. So in my first measure, and we've already played this exercise before, all right, remember that we could do it with our hands and our legs. The only thing that changes about that line number 5 is that I have in the second half of the exercise 4 counts of eighth notes and 4 counts of doubles, so a lot more doubles. All right, depending on the speed that you're playing this exercise and your daily warm-ups on this level, you can start developing that double wrist stroke. We want to make sure that we're using our fingers a little bit to feel the stick as I'm playing my doubles. All right, so we'll talk about this later, how to really increase your finger ability. But for right now, probably even better just to practice with your hands on your leg. All right, line number 6 is now our rudiments, but now using double strokes. So we learned that the shell of the 9-stroke roll, or what we call the check pattern, or the subdivision of the 9-stroke roll, is 4 bounces and a tap. So now I can teach you the 9-stroke roll is named for 9-stroke roll because there are 9 strokes in it. So double, 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 and a tap. Okay, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. So that's why it's called a 9-stroke roll. Double, 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 tap is 9 strokes. Rest, rest. So first 2 measures are 9-stroke rolls. Okay, right now we're not bouncing, we're playing our double strokes because we're going to speed up over time, eventually learning how to play a bounce, but for right now working our double strokes. And then measures 3 and 4 of line number 6 is our 5-stroke roll. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So learning not only that double, double tap is a 5-stroke roll, but also the shell or the check pattern 1 and 2. 3 and 4. Double, double tap, double, double tap. Once you get used to it, it's like the paradiddle rudiments. You get used to the pattern of it, and then you won't have to worry about reading it. All right, line number 7 is our multiple bounce rolls. All right, there's a couple of new rudiment patterns in here. The first 2 measures is 6 bounces. And if we think of our rule of doubling 6, 6 times 2 is 12, ending with a tap is 13. So the first 2 measures of line number 7 is a 13-stroke roll. Of course, it's not really a 13-stroke roll because a buzz has a lot more notes in it than a double, but it's still a 13-stroke bass, roll bass. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Now, if you look at the third measure, you see that now I have 4 bounces. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9. So I have 2 9-stroke rolls and a 5-stroke roll. Notice that these are all beamed together based off of the rudiment pattern, not based off of how you count it. So if you'll think of the roll rudiments, 13-stroke roll is 6 bounces plus a tap. 9-stroke roll is 4 bounces plus a tap. 5-stroke roll is 2 bounces plus a tap. 2 times 2 is 4, plus a tap is 5. All right, then we have that line. So notice this line repeats off of the left. So the first time through, I'm starting on my right, 2 13s, 2 9s, 1 5. Repeat off of the left, 2 13s, 2 9s, 1 5. So think about the roll rudiments, not just the counting as you're playing this line. So here's what the line sounds like. I'm going to play it twice, once off the right, once off the left. Ready and go. Those are 13s, now 9, 5. Now back to 13. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 9s. All right, making really nice, big, full, multiple bounces all the way through. So really focusing in on the quality of my multiple bounces, but also getting used to counting the subdivisions for those 13, 9, and 5-stroke rolls. All right, so if you look at line number 8, it's the same thing but backwards. Now I start with a tap, and I have 2 5-stroke rolls, 2 9-stroke rolls, and a 13-stroke roll. So getting used to seeing these as patterns, not reading the 8s and quarter notes. 1 5-stroke roll, 5-stroke roll, 9-stroke, 9-stroke, 13-stroke. All right. Now this one does not alternate on the repeat. You just play it again because all of the roll rudiments alternate. 9, 9, 13, rest, and then you do it again. All right. So some of these rudimental patterns will repeat off the left. Some of them will, just because they all alternate, will just repeat back off the right hand. So really focus in on your 2 bounces being a 5-stroke roll, 4 bounces being a 9-stroke roll, 6 bounces being a 13-stroke roll. All right, double each one of them at a tap, and that's where you get to it. All right, and then line number 9 and 10 is, again, really working on the motion of our music reading. So whenever I have 8th notes, right, left, right, right, left, right, right, left, right, the right hands are on all the downbeats. Your left hands are on the upbeats. But your right hand is not on every downbeat because occasionally I throw in a rest. So 1 and 2, rest. 4 and 1 and 2, rest. 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. 4 and. So as I'm making these rhythms a little trickier as we go through, it's the motion, but you also have to concentrate. All right, line number 10 is an easy, it's no technique involved. So you can play this off of the right or off of the left. But basically, whenever I have a half rest, it gets 2 counts. So a quarter rest we're used to only having 1 count or 1 playing of the foot. A half rest is 2, right? So rest 2, 3, 4, rest 2, 3, 4, rest 2, 3, 4, half rest, rest. So you can say half rest, rest to yourself. That may help you to remember, but always play your foot on all of the rests. All right, so again, the first 4 lines with those dynamic changes really focus on, because that control that you have when you're playing really loud forte rebound strokes changes as I do a diminuendo, and then when I'm playing my tap strokes has to be solely with the wrist. We really have to get good at that, because that's going to be the control that we use for accent tap exercises later, right? And then learning your rudiments, your roll rudiments, the 13, 9, and 5-stroke rolls, of course, very important too. So work through each one of these separately, then play along with your daily drills every day. Again, I encourage you to practice this at least for a week before you move on to the next level. Playing this along with the play-along tracks, watching me, seeing if you can mimic my hands, make sure your hands look as good as mine as you're playing it. And then also learn the keyboard part, which I will do in the next video lesson.